Let's look at the day 2 procedures for the experiment testing house paint for lead. So in the last class period, you took a sample of paint and you put it in a test tube full of nitric acid, and we put that in boiling water to dissolve the paint and to extract any acid, any metal into the acid. We also made a standard where we put some lead into the same acid in the same type of tube, and we made a control to which we added nothing. So all these 3 samples were in boiling water. Now they're cooled off and we can see what they have in them. So I'm going to take them out of the water, and I prepared a cup for each of these samples. This one with my initials for my sample, this one S for the standard, and this one C for the control. And into each one I put a coffee filter, and I'm going to pour those samples through the filters, and then the liquid that goes through, that's what I want to test to see if any lead has dissolved into the acid. Now it's important that we know that if we detect any lead, that it came from the paint sample and not from any contaminated materials or anything like that. So that's the reason why we're using the same cups, the same filters, the same tubes, and the same acid. And that's the reason why we're doing the control. The control shouldn't have anything in it, so when we test it using our testing substance, potassium chromate, we should see no kind of reaction. The reason I'm wearing the gloves is because of the potassium chromate, not because of the acid. Potassium chromate is something that you don't want to get on your skin. Some chromate compounds have been related to cancer. This procedure will be safe if you're wearing gloves, and we'll make sure that we dispose of the materials properly. Okay, so when the material is filtering, I'm going to take this filter out and put it in this cup on my bench. I'm not going to put it in the garbage can. I don't want the custodians to empty the trash and then get contaminated with something. So please use the tweezers to put the used filters into the waste cup on your bench, and I'll dispose of those properly. We're using the filters so that we can get out any crud that might not have dissolved in the acid. And so then I'm going to add potassium chromate to see if there's a reaction or not. Now it's hard for you to see the reactions in these white cups, so I'm just going to pour a little bit into each of these cups. You won't do this step. I'm only doing it so that you can see the reactions better. So the first one that I'll test is the control. The control right here has nothing added to it, so I should see no kind of reaction. Potassium chromate is clear and yellow. When I put it in the control, it should stay clear and yellow. And sure enough, there's nothing happening in there. It's just clear and yellow. So that tells me that the materials that I used are not contaminated with anything that would react with the chromate. Now I'll test the standard. I purposely put lead into the standard to see what it looks like when I find lead. I need a standard to show me when the reaction is positive for lead and it turns cloudy like this. Then I can say, well, I put lead in here and this is what I saw happen when there's lead present, so this must be an indication of lead. Now for our results to be accurate, we need to know for sure that only lead reacts with this chromate substance. That's an important consideration. That's an assumption that we're making. Over here is my paint sample, and this is the one that I'm really concerned about. I want to know, when I add the potassium chromate, does it look more like the control, which I know doesn't have anything in it that reacts with chromate, or is it more like the standard, which I know has lead in it, and I saw that the lead reacts with chromate. So I'll test this here and cross my fingers. Ah, okay, so when I added it, it doesn't look like the standard, so I know it doesn't contain anything that reacts with chromate like I know lead does, and it must be more like the control, to which I added nothing. So there's nothing in my paint that's any different from what was in the control, or at least nothing that reacts with chromate. If it had turned cloudy, then I would be concerned about my paint sample. I would probably want to do the test again to make sure that there wasn't a mistake. And if it still came out as a positive result, then I'd want to do some follow-up and find out what do I do now that I know that I have lead in the paint in my house. Let's find out what you got.